Oh, hell yeah, and welcome, folks, to episode 433 here today of #AskGSM for Wednesday, March 16th, 2022. Happy 316 day, folks. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well, having a great week so far. It is indeed Stone Cold Steve Austin Day. How I'll be celebrating, I don't know. I actually have a Stone Cold 316 book that I bought for my birthday last year that I have yet to finish, so maybe I'll do a chapter in that, try to finish the whole thing if I have time. We'll see. I'm not sure. Maybe watch some classic Stone Cold Steve Austin matches, moments, promos, swig of soda, beer, water, whatever your choice of beverage is for the working man. But we do have a lot of questions here to answer today on #AskGSM. Thank you guys, as always, for your support of the show. I appreciate it. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop your question on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not in the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. We got a couple of great interviews coming here to the channel very soon, both wrestling-related and non-wrestling-related. So if you haven't already, please subscribe and hit that bell button to be notified every time a new video goes up here on the WrestleRant channel. Let's start with the Facebook questions here today, starting with No L from Facebook. Their first question was, do you think now is the time for Thunder Rosa to win the AEW Women's World Championship? Yes. 1,000 times yes. I honestly had no issue. I saw a lot of people upset, oh, she should have won a Revolution. No, she shouldn't have. I mean, the feud hasn't gotten that much hotter since Revolution. I would have held off till Double or Nothing, but we're on the 1-year anniversary of St. Patrick's Day Slam when they first had their unsanctioned match, a year ago from tomorrow. They're in Thunder Rosa's hometown tonight. How do you not do it? I mean, they probably did that on purpose as far as scheduling her hometown for that show. I'm sure Tony Khan did that on purpose. It would have been nice had they built up the feud a little more in recent weeks. It really hasn't felt overly personal. So they got to do the title change tonight. I had no issue with them holding off a Revolution. It's a steel cage, eliminate hopefully all possibility of interference from Jamie Hayter and Rebel. But yeah, tonight is the night in the main event inside of a steel cage to crown Thunder Rosa, the new AEW Women's World Champion. No L's second question, should Jeff Hardy's first match in AEW be a tag team match or a singles match? I'm thinking a tag team match. I mean, he's going to be a tag team guy going forward, so I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing Jeff Hardy in a singles match, not at all. But I think it would make more sense to, I mean, he and Matt are automatically partners. It's not like they're building to it. They're slowly teasing it. They have to get back on the same page. No, they are partners from the get-go. I mean, they came out wearing the fucking classic Hardy Boys gear on Rampage last Friday. So, I mean, you could do, like Darby faced, what was it, Mark Quinn on Rampage last week. Darby's primarily a tag team guy, but he's also gotten TNT title shots. Jeff Hardy, for now, I would assume, as he should be, is primarily a tag team guy. So I assume his first match in AEW will likely be alongside Matt against either the Butcher and the Blade. I mean, I think them against the Hybrid 2 would be awesome too, but we haven't seen them on TV in a while. The AHFO or AFO or whatever the fuck it is, GTFO as I've said before, the faction sucks. They should ultimately be building to Hardys versus Private Party. I would not have that be their first match. I would build to that. I mean, Double or Nothing should either be the Hardys against Private Party, or if Private Party doesn't mean enough, which they really don't, unfortunately, due to bad booking, then it should be the Hardys versus Sting and Darby. Maybe that's something you say for later down the road, but I think that'd be an amazing attraction for Double or Nothing, given the tease that we got last Wednesday on Dynamite. So, yeah, I would probably just keep Jeff Hardy as a tag team guy for now and have him team with Matt, and their first match either being with the Butcher and the Blade bore me to tears, but they are good quality wrestlers. They're competent wrestlers, so I'm sure them against the Hardys would be a fine match. I would personally like to see the Hybrid 2 be the Hardys' first match. I know they would get squashed as they should, as far as Jack Evans and Angelico go, but it would be more of a quality match. Then again, I say that, but I'm pretty sure Angelico got hurt, so I don't think that's going to be happening. I think he got hurt recently, which is why we have not seen him as of late on AEW TV. So it'll very likely end up being the Butcher and the Blade. My phone just went off. I apologize. Let's see. Next question from Twitter. And these Twitter questions are going to be all over the place, by the way, because I have yet to organize them. It's been a very busy week so far. So I apologize about that. We got a lot of questions. A lot of questions. So, again, like I said, these will not be organized by user, because, like, John sent in a few questions, then at Iwagu91, and they kind of went back and forth. So that's why they will not be organized until after the fact. But at Iwagu91's first question here today for the show from Twitter. He said, hey, yo, did you know that Undertaker's Hall of Fame induction will happen on the 10th anniversary of his end of an era bout with Triple H? I did not. I mean, I did know that, but I kind of completely forgot about it. I was thinking more so that Brock's match with Roman is happening on not exactly the 10-year anniversary, but... Oh, no, wait. Yeah, you said Hall of Fame induction. Okay, I'm thinking match. Brock is facing Roman almost exactly 10 years to the day from when he returned at on Monday Night Raw on April 2nd, which I think he... Is it the 10-year anniversary exactly? I don't think so. I think it's like one day off. I think it's April 3rd. I think it's Sunday, April 3rd is when he and Roman are facing off. April 2nd was when he came back 10 years ago. So I was thinking more about that, but you're right. His induction will fall on the 10-year anniversary of that Hell in a Cell match, the end of an era match, as you mentioned, with Triple H, which is awesome, and I'm looking forward to that. So that's a pretty cool stat there. At Reborn Again, John Retland from the Twitter machine and on YouTube, Real Honesty with John Retland. Check out his channel. He does great work. His first question was... So with the very sad news of Scott Hall's passing, it's clear that he was part of many huge moments. Where would you personally rank his WCW return when he came through the crowd and cut the "You Know Who I Am," etc. promo amongst wrestling moments of the 90s? It's got to be towards the top. If it's not like number one, which I don't know if it would be, it would definitely be in the top three. It has to be. I mean, the promo itself was cool, but like... Not having watched wrestling at that point, but going back and watching it now, people legitimately did not know if he was coming over from WWE as Razor Ramon. Like, he showed up looking like Razor, talking like Razor. We hadn't really seen anything like that quite up to that point. Fans had never really seen anything quite like that up to that point in pro wrestling history. So it was a big, big deal, and also what it led to, too. It wasn't just a cool promo and a cool appearance, like, oh, Luger showing up, pulling double duty, whatever, on that first Nitro, I think, was cool. Didn't really lead to much. I mean, he had a good WCW run, but like with Scott Hall, that was that kind of paved the road for the NWO in WCW. One of the greatest factions of all time, my favorite faction of all time, I would say at this point. It constantly changes, but I would think the NWO, at least for now, are my favorite faction ever. But yeah, I think it's one of those great promos and one of those great moments that people will continue to look back on. As really, honestly, had it not been for a WCW surge of popularity and kind of turning towards a more edgier product, WWE may not have been as motivated to put forth that same amount of effort and give us the Attitude Era the following year. So I think that's pretty cool as far as the impact that it had on the business, and it hasn't been forgotten 25, 30 years later. So yeah, the Scott Hall news is very, very sad. The Scott Hall, the passing, the news of his passing, rather, from the other day. We'll go more into detail about it on WrestleRant Radio tomorrow, myself and Mr. Marceau. But it was very sad, and I met him a few times. He's a great dude, so it's a ginormous loss for this wrestling industry for sure. John's second question, is WWE in danger of making WrestleMania 38 Celebria? Because based on their weekly TV, that seems to be a pretty big focus of theirs. I know the first Mania had celebrity involvement and so on throughout the years, but it's still rather silly, isn't it? Honestly, I think it goes back to the fact that they've fired so much talent, and so much talent that could have been in the top spots at WrestleMania, which is why they're relying on celebrities. I think the stuff they're doing with Zayn and Knoxville is actually very entertaining. The Logan Paul stuff is pretty basic. It's not bad. It's not awful, but, it doesn't really do much for me personally. McAfee, I like. He doesn't really need a match on the show, and there's so many. The fact that McAfee, Knoxville, and Logan Paul all have matches at WrestleMania, but one of their top stars in Seth Rollins does not currently, is pretty ridiculous from a storyline standpoint, to the point where Seth Rollins and Owens are fighting for a fucking talk show segment at WrestleMania in the main event of Raw this week. That's ridiculous. Like you said, we've had a lot of celebrity involvement at WrestleMania over the years. The Floyd Mayweather match was awesome. We've had a lot of celebrity matches that weren't as good. We had a celebrity in the main event of WrestleMania back at WrestleMania 11, which was pretty awful. That whole Mania was. But, Lawrence Taylor did well, all things considered. Yeah, like you said, I don't really overly mind the use of celebrities at WrestleMania. But I just go back to not 5 years ago, not 15 years ago, not even 20 or 25 years ago. I go back to WrestleMania last year. Where we had two major celebrity spots at Mania. Both were exactly what they needed to be, and in one case exceeded those expectations. And the rest of that show did not rely largely on celebrities. It didn't rely on part-timers. I think, honestly, looking back on it now, the only part-timer we had in action at WrestleMania last year was Edge. And I wouldn't even call him a part-timer. He's on the show almost every single week, and he has been for a very long time now. So I wouldn't even call him a part-timer. But last year at Mania, we didn't have Ronda Rousey, who was also not really a part-timer at this point. She's more of a full-timer. But we didn't have Rousey on the show. We didn't have Brock Lesnar on the show. Triple H, Goldberg, John Cena, Undertaker, Batista, Kurt Angle. None of those people were in the ring at WrestleMania last year. And it ended up being a great show. Between the two nights, they had to rely more so on their current roster than ever before. Given the circumstances surrounding the pandemic, they couldn't have these people appear in empty arenas in the Thunderdome, you know. So they ended up delivering a very good WrestleMania based on their current roster. And it was a great show. This year could be also a good show. The expectations are so low, I feel like they'll have no choice but to exceed those expectations because the bar is so low. But still, I feel like it's one of those events where they're relying way too much on outside talent, you know, with Brock being in the main event, Ronda being the main event of another show the other night of WrestleMania. Bad Bunny last year was great, but like now we have Logan Paul in the ring. We have Johnny Knoxville, and the Johnny Knoxville stuff has been entertaining, but why can't you put that same amount of effort in other people on your roster? Johnny Knoxville is so over. Why can't you make that same special aura for a guy like Ricochet or a Cesaro again before he left? They just choose not to. Like, Rollins or Cesaro had that great Mania moment a year ago, beating Rollins, and now a year later it doesn't even mean anything because he's currently gone from the company. He left and probably isn't coming back. I just want people to realize that this company is definitely capable of putting on great Manias without relying on outside talent, part-timers, or celebrities. They can still be very good Manias. I've seen a lot of Manias that had celebrity involvement up and down the card. Not as much as we're seeing this year, I don't think, but, you know, even those original WrestleManias, a lot of them were very fun. Now, they weren't overly relying, it's all about the current roster back in 85. We got to build new stars and shit like that. I get it. But the product at this point is probably arguably worse and more mundane than it's ever been, and according to a lot of people, which I agree with to a degree, especially on SmackDown. And on the SmackDown front, I totally agree. Raw has been better lately, and the card does have potential. I wouldn't call this the worst card I've ever seen, but there isn't a lot of excitement going into the show. Even with fans being back in the buildings, there's not a lot of excitement going into this WrestleMania, which is unfortunate due to the circumstances surrounding the card. So hopefully the celebrity stuff can exceed expectations. It doesn't take center stage. This road to WrestleMania, unfortunately, has been largely uninspiring. Raw has been very good, I think, by recent Raw standards, as I've said before. SmackDown, not so much. We'll see what they can do. And as I've said before, the builds are important in getting people excited for the show, but sometimes they've had very bad builds and great WrestleManias. So hopefully this year is one of those instances. John's next question, with the news of Roxy signing with WWE, how do you see her being featured? She's got youth on her side, a lot of upside based on what matches I've seen of hers. Yeah, I'm a big Roxy fan. I haven't done this deep dive on her matches over the last 5 years. I don't think she's even been wrestling for 5 years, but she is a Booker T student, a Reality of Wrestling alum. She comes from Ring of Honor. She is I would say inaugural. They had a women's champion before, but it was a different lineage, I believe. So they had recently reinstated, done a new women's championship, whatever, the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship in Ring of Honor, and she won it by winning a tournament against Miranda Alizé at their Death Before Dishonor show, if I'm not mistaken, back in September. And they had an excellent match, and she's had a lot of good matches since then on Ring of Honor TV, their various pay-per-views. I enjoyed the match she had with Willow Nightingale back at Final Battle in December. A great match on Impact TV against Deonna Purrazzo. I think in the main event, winner take all, that Deonna won back in January. Roxy did a January tryout with WWE and obviously got signed out of it. Like you said, she's got youth on her side. For only being 20, 21 years old, she's quite good, which is crazy. So we'll see how she does. I'm excited to see what she could do in WWE. It is very much a risk as far as, will they use her properly? Will they not feature her at all? Will she get fired in 6 months? You know what? They tend to, for whatever reason, sometimes, not all the time, but at least when they get to NXT, they tend to do well. The main roster, I don't know how she'll do, but you know, she is young enough where she can bounce back. If the WWE run doesn't go well, she can always either go back to Impact or AEW. I mean, if she has the WWE opportunity, why would you turn it down? There are people that have turned it down, gone back to WWE years later, and it didn't make a lick of a fucking difference. I think I remember reading that the girl's name, her name in NXT UK now is Amelia Mackenzie, I think. I think that's her. I don't think that's her. I don't know if that's her NXT name or her actual name. I don't remember. But I think she was approached with an NXT UK offer years ago, turned it down, wanted to go do touring or something, and ended up signing with WWE last year and still hasn't done anything. Like, she hasn't won all these, that many matches on NXT UK TV, so didn't really matter. But, you know, if she has the opportunity to go to WWE and hopefully she does well, then why not take that opportunity? If it doesn't go well, she has the rest of her career in these other promotions. It's not like it's a last chance thing. Oh, this is the last contract I'll ever sign. It's now or never. No. I don't know if WWE will come knocking again. It's obviously her dream, and hopefully it goes well. So I think she's a very talented girl. Hopefully she can do big things in NXT. They have, I don't want to say a super deep women's division at this point because they fired a lot of people, and just a lot of people just aren't on the show. Either got called up or fired. So the division isn't as deep as it once was, but there still are a lot of talented ladies in that division, and I think she can kind of fit in well, assuming they utilize her properly, which, again, there's no guarantees of. At Uagu91, would you like to see Chris Hero / Cassius Ohno and Claudio Castagnoli / Cesaro reform their tag team Kings of Wrestling? Of course. I think it'd be great. I think it was foolish of WWE to never reunite them at least once. They work so well together in Ring of Honor, and they've reunited tag teams from other promotions before, so, like, it's not completely unheard of. And it's not like Cesaro was this top-tier talent the entire 10 years he was there. I mean, the guy was the tag team guy for a majority of his run in WWE with people like Tyson Kidd, Jack Swagger, just as recently as Shinsuke Nakamura, obviously Sheamus, and not once did they think or even bother to put him with Cassius Ohno, who I know was never going to make it to the main roster in a featured role, but as a tag team guy, that would have been fucking cool. So they missed on that opportunity. Both guys are gone now. They're both free agents. So if I'm Tony Khan, he's a longtime Ring of Honor guy. He's an original ROH fan. I would be knocking down the door of Claudio and Chris and saying, listen, we'd love to bring you into AEW and not only bring you in as a tag team, but align you, as I tweeted last week, with Regal, Bryan, and Moxley. That would be fucking cool. A faction of those five, Regal has history with Ohno and Castagnoli anyway in NXT. His last televised match was with Cesaro. So it makes sense. Like, Bryan and Moxley can kind of do their own thing, and Regal can manage the Kings of Wrestling as a tag team. I think that would be fucking cool. That would be the ultimate dream stable right there. Would they actually do it? Probably not. But I think it would be cool, and we'll see. I would love to at least see if they're not going to go to AEW, reunite for a one-off on the indies somewhere. Maybe that Ring of Honor show coming up over WrestleMania weekend. It might be a little too late now to put that card together. I don't even know what that card's going to fucking look like. It's March 16th. It's coming up in 2 weeks. Like, 1 or 2 matches have been announced. I don't know why anyone would... it should be a fun show unless they have the full card announced and I'm completely missing something, but it seems like that's kind of up in the air right now, which is weird. But I think it'd be cool if Ring of Honor snagged them, or Tony Khan or whatever, for that Ring of Honor Super Card of Honor show over WrestleMania weekend, and they can face the Briscoes for the tag team titles. I think that'd be cool. At Kyle Rochelle 19, if Cody Rhodes comes back and faces Seth Rollins, I know that people who do podcasts will be happy to see him, he says. What about the people in the crowd or someone like me who only watch WWE and remember him as a mid-card guy? What will happen if he doesn't get a huge reaction? So that's a great question. You are very much right. There are a lot of people who either don't watch AEW or have no fucking clue what AEW is. You are 100% right. There are people who only watch WWE and will likely only remember him as either a mid-card guy or as Stardust. To maximize that reaction, they got to do it in front of a hot crowd. Monday would have been perfect. They were in Jacksonville. There were chants for Cody anyway. I don't think it would have gotten a bad reaction. At this point, you might as well just wait until WrestleMania, which I think is silly, but I don't know why you wouldn't want to build up Rollins and Cody ahead of time, because that's a big match, I think. I don't know. I just feel like that's one of those matches where you should definitely advertise that in advance. But at WrestleMania, I think you would get a big reaction because the hardcores are buying tickets to Mania, and the casual people will cheer if other people are going crazy. Like, if you hear a loud reaction, the other people in the crowd are going to go nuts too because they want to be a part of the fun. That's just how wrestling fans work. And I know I've been a victim of that as well. Even if I don't know who someone is, if I hear them getting a bigger reaction, I'm thinking, oh, that's cool, that person showed up, even though I'm not overly familiar with who they are or what they've done since they left. That type of thing. But yeah, I think they got to, if they really want to make the most of Cody Rhodes, and I'm still not convinced, even if he does come in, they're going to treat him like a top tier talent. Still not convinced of that, because this is WWE, and you never know with them. I know what he did in AEW and what he did for them, but that's exactly it. Like, would they want to be petty and not book him properly? And I always think Cody has been a world champion caliber competitor. WWE never saw him that way during his first run there. Then again, you could say the same for Drew and Bobby. They came back and won World Championship gold. But Cody Rhodes is not Bobby Lashley or Drew McIntyre. They are built, they fit the WWE mold. Cody looks great and whatever, but he's not the WWE guy as far as like the guy that they would put the WWE Championship on, typically. And that hasn't stopped them from putting the belt on people like Daniel Bryan in the past and CM Punk and people like that. But it's hard to say. It's hard to say. So if you really want to make people buy into the idea that he's a big deal, even if you haven't been following AEW, then they need to book him like a top star from the get-go, go in there, beat Rollins decisively, and go out the next night on Raw or on SmackDown or whatever, and either go after Roman Reigns or another top star or just continue that feud. They need to, if you want him to be perceived as a big deal, which why the fuck wouldn't you want to? I mean, I know they're petty and they're like, oh, he left and he started this other company, let's bury him. You need stars. You need stars. Why wouldn't you take advantage of that? You know, the fact that AEW is straight up giving you a star because Cody Rhodes is coming here willingly because he left AEW. Why wouldn't you take advantage of that and build around him and give him success, make him successful, and attract other AEW people who might not be happy there and are willing to leave there to come to WWE? I think that's very possible. So it's all in WWE's hands as far as how they book him. I would book him to be a big deal because if he's booked as a big deal, you, Kyle, for example, may have no choice but to see him as a big deal. If he goes in that role, is put in that role, and he delivers in that role, then I think that's all the makings of a successful single star, in my opinion. Like for AJ Styles, there were a lot of people, I'm sure, who do not watch other companies. They had no fucking clue who AJ Styles is. But people fell in love with AJ because he was booked like a star, and the guy is great. Cody Rhodes is very good. And if they can book him like a star, a lot like they did with AJ, maybe not to quite that extent, maybe even so, because then Cody can be a top guy if they really wanted him to be, then I think it would work. But time will tell as far as whether they actually do that or not. And again, they got to debut him in front of a good crowd that's going to give him the reaction befitting of a big star. Back to Iwagu91 here. Their next question. Do you see Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley challenging Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus for the AEW World Tag Team Championships at Double or Nothing? I do. I do see them challenging for it, and I do see them winning. I mean, AEW, it's funny because they have so many tag teams, but there's none that I look at right now and think to myself, wow, they should be putting the belts on these guys. Like Red Dragon, for me, yeah, but they're busy with the Bucks right now, so that's probably, I mean, their chance to do that was a Revolution. They didn't do it. Fine. But if you're not going to put the belts on Bucks or Red Dragon, Moxley and Danielson, a lot like Omega and Page, are yet another makeshift tag team, but they work so well together, and it's a great story. It's one of my favorite things, if not my favorite angle going on in AEW right now, especially now that Regal is involved. So I think that's the direction we're going in. I think they will. I mean, they wrestled last week. They wrestled again. They're wrestling again tonight against Best Friends' Chuck Taylor and Wheeler Yuta. So they're clearly racking up wins, and I think that's definitely where they're headed. And I would put the belts on them. I like Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, but I mean, they got to move on to the Christian Jungle Boy thing, turn Christian heel, have him turn on Jungle Boy. They got to move forward with that shit because it's been long enough. No other tag teams really stand out to me. This has to be the next team to win the belts. Beyond Red Dragon is the thing. Red Dragon, yeah, but I don't think they're going to be doing that anytime soon. The Acclaimed aren't winning the belts. I mean, House of Black, maybe, but beyond them, no one else really comes to mind. The Lucha Bros already had their run. The Bucks already had their run. I wouldn't put the belts back on them anytime soon. So I would put it on Moxley and Danielson at Double or Nothing. I agree with that. Next question from Agent Red Raider, rather. Thank you for sending in your question. His question was, do you feel Vince is bringing down WWE? I know WWE has stock with shareholders. How does that play into controlling ownership and remaining CEO? I'm not sure if I quite understand the question, but is he bringing down the company? Creatively, yes. I mean, the man, whatever you say or whatever he said on the Pat McAfee show, parts of which interview I do agree with. From a creative standpoint, he is not the one that should be in charge at this point. At least not the only one. If he's the only person that gets the final say, that's not good. I mean, that's good in case if he has a great mind and he's coming up with all these amazing ideas. Not to say that every idea of Vince McMahon's is shit, but a lot of what we see on TV right now and the structure and the sameness of everything is just not good. It hasn't been good for a very long time now, or at least up to snuff with what it should be. You know, some of the stuff is decent, but really should not be as bad as it is the problem. And he even said on that call that he does things to appease shareholders, which you have to do as a business. I'm not saying listen to the fans 100% of the time. A lot of fans don't even know what the fuck they want. But creatively, it's just there's so many people he's letting go and not doing anything with that really baffle me. That only a man in his 70s that could be considered senile would be responsible for. Like that, I look at that guy and think to myself, the guy is so old at this point, I'm not shocked he's making all these dumb, creative decisions. Because he has no fucking clue what he's doing at this point. And no one else can really tell him otherwise because he's the be-all, end-all. So that's the problem. But yeah, he is bringing down the company creatively, I would say that. As far as financially, I mean, the company's making more money than ever before. I mean, he does have a great business sense. Vince isn't completely useless in 2022. The problem is that he should be handling all that stuff, but not being in charge of creative. That should be Triple H or someone else. I mean, it may not be as good. Bruce Pritchard's a goof, it seems like, but Vince at this point, he may have better ideas than Vince. And I know he might be just a younger Vince, but Vince at this point, it's just, we've reached the point where it's like, we can't come back with him in charge of creative. Like, it's got to be somebody else. I don't want Vince to go away completely. I just don't want him running the shows week to week. Because his fingerprints are all over these shows, and that's how you can tell. I mean, he's also responsible for the good, don't get me wrong. But I'm sure we can get as much good, if not more good, from someone else in charge, and a lot less of the bad. At Kyle Rochelle 19, back to Kyle here. Should Becky and Bianca be the main event of WrestleMania? To me, it's a bigger match than Charlotte and Ronda. I feel that both matches heading into WrestleMania don't interest me, but as a match, I guess, I have more faith in Becky and Bianca. What do you think? Bottom line, they should be the main event. Becky and Bianca is the longer story. I know Charlotte and Ronda obviously have history. I'm looking forward to that match more than most, actually. Charlotte and Ronda is the bigger marquee match for Mania. Yes. What will be the better match? Probably Becky and Bianca. And the feud has been better handled. Bianca's had this great rise. Becky's been on top in this great heel. It's a story that sells itself. Charlotte and Ronda I know they have history from a few years ago, but beyond that, as of late, what they've been doing going into Mania has not been overly exciting. Ronda is better off as a heel. She's trying as a face, but she's better as a heel. Charlotte is doing her best, and the match may not even be that good. Ronda still clearly has ring rust. I wouldn't be putting that woman in the main event at this point. I mean, she had great matches back during her first run, but she was wrestling consistently for a while, doing house shows, wrestling on Raw most weeks. She's not doing that right now. She's had a few matches since being back, and she's still working off the ring rust. The mic skills aren't really up to snuff, unfortunately. Less is more in that respect, in my opinion. But on paper, yeah, Becky and Bianca should be the main event. Will it be? No, they already announced Charlotte and Ronda's main eventing, so that's not changing. Unless Ronda or Charlotte can't make the show for whatever reason, one of them gets hurt, someone gets COVID, then Becky and Bianca would be the main event, yes. But they already announced Charlotte and Ronda, so that's what I'm expecting it to be. And it's just not as good of a story as Becky and Bianca, but I mean, it also devalues the Women's Rumble if you don't have the Women's Rumble winner go on last. That's the thing. You probably could have just done Charlotte and Ronda without having Ronda win the Rumble. You could have had Bianca win twice. People probably still would have complained about that, but that's just wrestling fans for you. At Supersonic X 1991, this question was, with Andrade kicking Matt Hardy out of the AHFO, is he going to start his own faction with El Bandito, Roosh, because I don't want to see them butchered his name, or I don't want his name butchered, I guess he wrote, I don't know. Ric Flair, because of his history with Sting and Charlotte Flair, and because he's still eager to work with Andrade. Keep Ric Flair the fuck away from AEW. No fucking thanks. Not at all. I liked that idea before he got counted out for being a fucking pest in that dark side of the ring, which I know happened 2 decades ago, but he has done himself no favors with the shit he has said in the last 6 months. I mean, what he did 20 years ago would be one thing. The guy holds no accountability whatsoever. He has bad opinions, which is one thing, but he just has no value on TV. I mean, 10 years ago, him as the manager for a guy like Dolph, sure. But again, I can't take shots at Vince for being 77 and being in charge of creative and then say, oh, bring Ric Flair on the show. The guy's 70-something. I mean, he really can't contribute anything. I know Ric Flair's a name. The guy has health issues. He's off his wagon. He's just fucking weird. I can't even understand half of the stuff that he says half the time. So, no, keep Ric Flair off of any major promotion, please. At least in a regular role. Like when he showed up at NWA last year, I thought that was cool. The one off at AAA, cool. But like in a regular role, no thanks. As far as Andrade's own faction, I like Andrade having his own faction. The AFO stuff, AHFO, I don't know, whatever the fuck you would call it, is fucking terrible. It was bad when it was the HFO, and I love Matt Hardy. He tried, he really did. The Butcher and the Blade are losers. The Hybrid are losers. The Private Party, unfortunately, are losers as far as their booking is concerned. They're very talented, but they're perceived as losers because they never really win whenever it matters most. So that's the problem. I would move those guys. I mean, the Butcher and Blade serve no purpose. Hybrid 2, I don't even know how they're still there. Private Party, I would break off on their own. And yeah, give Andrade his own little group of Bandito and Roosh and Dragon Lee. I think that'd be cool. They're all friends anyway. I don't know about Bandito, but Andrade is totally close with Roosh and Dragon Lee. And I think that'd be great. I mean, they need a mouthpiece is the problem. Andrade, it is funny to hear him speak in his broken English, but his mic skills really aren't that good at all. That's why I thought Chavo was a great manager for him, and they just haven't put them back together for whatever reason. But yeah, I would totally, I don't know, I would totally do that. I think that's a great idea. I don't think they will, but that would be much better than what we're getting now with the AFO or whatever the fuck they're calling it. His second question from Supersonic X. Do you find it annoying that wrestling fans complain about the smallest thing that's not a big deal? One recently is when Pete Dunne changed his name to Butch, and I laughed, why can wrestling fans learn to not take it too seriously? If you don't think that's a big deal, then you're not fucking paying attention. People complaining about the Butch thing is absolutely justified. The shit is terrible. Butch is a fucking awful name. It goes back to what I've said a million fucking times. They just can't leave well enough alone. They can't. They just need to change everything. And if you own the name, if you don't own the name Pete Dunne, you want to own everything, then call him Pete Dunne with no E. I mean, is it really that difficult? Or just call him Dunne? I don't know. There's Peter Dunne. I don't. There's definitely a way around it without calling him fucking Butch, and having him run strut out there with the, oh my god, the cabbie hat and whatever. He looks ridiculous. A stable of Pete, Ridge, and Sheamus honestly sounds pretty cool. I don't mind that, although I would like to see Pete on his own. But if you don't think people complaining over Butch, like, oh, they should stop complaining. There's a lot of things that people should stop complaining about. I agree. I think you should probably stop complaining about people complaining about Butch. I mean, that's part of the problem, too. When people say, oh, it's not that big of a deal. You are part of the fucking problem. You are the same type of people that last year, when Karrion Kross, oh, people are bitching over his booking. He lost his debut. People complain about everything. Why are they complaining about Karrion Kross losing his debut? He'll be fine. And then he got fucking fired. I mean, you can see this shit from a mile away. It makes the Gunther name look like it's the greatest thing in the world at this point. Butch is stupid. I mean, the guy's career might already be over. I mean, to think that's not a big deal, again, you're not paying attention. And this is why people are so disinterested with the product. Why invest 5 years in the Pete Dunne character, in the name and everything about the character if they're just going to go ahead and change it? It renders everything we've seen for the last 5 years completely irrelevant if they're going to ignore their own developmental territory's history. That makes absolutely no fucking sense. At the Wrestle Guy Sal's first question, at this point, do you feel it would be better if Cody Rhodes just returned to WrestleMania if he's coming? I think it would be a Hardy Boys-like moment and bigger than him coming on a Raw. I had the idea of Rollins hijacking the show and demanding a match, or he's not leaving the ring. Yeah, listen, I think that's probably what they should do at this point. I don't agree that's what they should have done all along. I think they should have brought, if they came to a deal a while ago, they should have done it as soon as possible, or at least waited for a good show to do it on. That time would have been Monday in Jacksonville. I know they're doing the thing with the Hardy Boys, and I've said this, I don't know where I mentioned this or who I talked to about it, but the difference with Taker, like people are comparing this to Cena and Taker from 4 years ago, or the Hardy Boys 5 years ago. There's a very big difference here. And there's obviously a lot that we don't know about the Cody Rhodes situation. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, I know he's signed, I know he's not signed. We don't know. There's a very good possibility he probably would have showed up a while ago, but he just didn't sign until like the other day. If he's even signed at all, we don't know. He's playing fucking mind games, and it seems like we really don't know. And it's cool they're keeping it quiet. We don't really know for sure. If anything, I do like that about the situation, that we don't really know all the details. I do like that mystery. I do like that mystery about it. But the biggest difference between this situation and those, with Taker and Cena, they didn't know if Taker could go, is the problem. Taker was convinced after that WrestleMania, like they told him about the Cena match according to the Last Ride documentary, like very late in the game, and he felt physically great. I don't know. It was really weird. I think he was still training in February. The whole episode on that last Ride show was great. Taker did a great job of documenting, listen, I'm ready, or blah, blah, blah. I'm not ready, but whatever. And they just didn't want to use him. It was very weird. That was very weird. And him coming out, just the squash scene in 2 minutes, I really didn't give a shit at all. I mean, it was a moment, I guess. It was stupid. It didn't lead to anything. It was a complete waste of time. The actual match, had they bothered to build it up, probably would have been good because Taker said he could go and he felt the best physically that he had in years. And they squandered that by doing what they did, by having a fucking 2-minute squash instead, which was so stupid. So fucking dumb. And then with the Hardy Boys thing, they couldn't come in anyway. They already signed with Ring of Honor. They were doing that thing. They really wanted to live up to the Bucks deal. Could they have come in early March? First of all, the Hardy Boys were not going to be a marquee match at WrestleMania. They weren't. I mean, WrestleMania already sold itself. The card itself from 33 already looked pretty good. They didn't need the Hardys advertised in a match for WrestleMania. They signed with Ring of Honor. That deal wasn't up until April 1st, the night before WrestleMania. So they couldn't show up even if they wanted to. And if they wanted to, they wouldn't have gone to Ring of Honor, but I felt like they felt like they needed to, and for storyline purposes, do the whole thing with the Bucks, which made sense, and I'm very glad they did it the way they did. With Cody Rhodes, assuming he's been signed or could have signed a month ago, they are intentionally holding out. If they really don't know what's going on with Cody Rhodes and they held out this long because they just don't know, then I get it. But if Cody's been signed and they held off intentionally, I don't agree with that. Because this isn't like Cody Rhodes versus fucking Heath Slater or Humberto Carrillo. Him and Rollins is a big marquee match, and I feel to waste it in an impromptu match without advertising it really. Because I think what would be very intriguing about that, that idea of that feud is the fact that you can build it up with promos. Rollins, no one has been more pro-WWE in the last 3 or 4 years than Seth Rollins. Cody Rhodes was the epitome of AEW. So to put those two guys in a ring against each other with promos and shit, I think would be awesome. That's what we need more of on the road to WrestleMania. We're kind of getting that now with Edge and AJ to an extent. I like the Edge stuff they're doing with him, and the whole AJ build I've liked for the most part so far. We need more of those type of promos, not just matches for the sake of having matches. Cody and Seth could sell itself, and they can build it up with promos. I feel like to do the match in a 2-minute match or even a 5 or 10-minute match at Mania, and then to do the feud from there is ass backwards. Why would you save a WrestleMania-worthy match until after WrestleMania? That makes absolutely no sense. With Brock at WrestleMania 28, he could have come in before. I think they worked out a deal with him over Mania weekend, but they didn't have him in a match at WrestleMania because why? The show already sold itself with Brock and Cena. With Rock and Cena. They didn't need Brock on the show. This show needs a guy like Cody Rhodes on it. Stone Cold is going to be there. He's not fucking wrestling a formal match. People need to stop with this. And if he does, it's going to be like a 2-minute match. It's not going to be this classic match that people are expecting. It will not be if they even do a match, which I'm not convinced they will. Because otherwise they would have advertised it at that. Why wouldn't you advertise that? This show needs a guy like Cody Rhodes on it to stir up some interest, even among people that don't watch the product normally. Maybe some AEW fans would watch that don't watch WWE normally. We need those type of people watching the show because they're not creating any new viewers, I'll tell you that much. And the Cody stuff would be interesting. And they didn't do it, or they couldn't do it, or whatever. So I just feel like it's ass backwards booking. I'm not going to say it's the right thing to do at this point, because Jacksonville would have been perfect on Monday. If Cody is sealed, signed, and delivered, you could have had Cody Rhodes show up on Monday and build up the feud in the next couple of weeks. That would have been perfect. It would have made Raw feel more must-see. Next week doesn't really feel must-see. What did they even advertise for next week? Nothing. It's just the same stuff. And some of the stuff is good, but they should be doing more than they are. So I would have advertised it. They're not. At this point, keep it a surprise and have them show up as a moment at Mania, like you said. Sal's second question, thoughts on Edge's new music after all these years of using Metalingus? I was surprised with the theme, with the change, but I think it's absolutely phenomenal, no pun intended, with his current character. Listen, I tweeted this out early morning yesterday. I love the song. And that might be an unpopular opinion because people are like, oh, they're changing all the songs. Listen, they are, and it's stupid. The new Shayna song sucks. The new Ricochet theme sucks. There's a lot of people I could point to, they gave them new themes and they're terrible. They would not give a new theme to a guy like Edge, who has used the same music for 20 fucking years without his approval. Edge's fingerprints are over everything. And I doubt it was even their idea. I'm sure Edge went to them and was like, listen, for this new character of mine, I want new music, and I want it done by Alter Bridge. They didn't have new music made. It was already a song. WWE had to buy the rights to that. How many times did they buy the rights to music for people to use as theme music? Never. They never do that. So Edge definitely had a hand in getting that song, secured for his character. That doesn't make it great. I'm not saying, because they got the rights to it, that automatically makes it a great song. No, I personally just really like the song, and I listened to it a couple times over the last couple of days, and I really like it. I think it fits his character perfectly. Because as Alexa said when we watched Raw the other day, when I hear, you think you know me, dun 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 dun, like I want to get excited. Like Edge was a heel going into Mania last year, and people heard that theme, and he was automatically a babyface again. You can't do that. People want to cheer Edge. You got to give them every reason to boo him. If the music's good, the music's great. That's even better. If they changed and gave him some generic shit, I'd be like, all right, probably go back to Metalingus because this song sucks. I'm not going to cheer him with that music. It's a great song, but I probably won't cheer him. He's a perfect heel. I know he was using Metalingus as a heel years ago, but this is a different Edge. And that's why he needed different music. So I really like the music personally. And the thing is, he'll go back to Metalingus. People are thinking, we'll never hear Metalingus again. Why would they change such an iconic theme? He'll fucking go back to it. And honestly, it'll mean more when we hear it again in a year or two or whatever. He'll go back to that song, and it'll be a bigger deal because we haven't heard it in a while. And it'll complete the babyface turn. He'll end his career as a babyface, I would assume. I'm sure. So I'm not worried about it, and I really like the change personally. His next question, what match do you think should close out night one of WrestleMania? Bianca versus Becky or Charlotte versus Ronda? Though Ronda did win the Rumble, I think there's a lot more interest in Belair getting her moment over Becky. I mean, I mentioned this before, but obviously Becky and Bianca, to me, is maybe not the bigger match, but I think it's been a better build, and it will be a better match. Charlotte and Ronda is a bigger match because Charlotte is a known name. I mean, so is Becky, but Bianca is not Ronda Rousey. I love Bianca Belair, but Ronda Rousey is a name that sells itself. More people know Ronda Rousey than Bianca Belair. That's a fact. So that's why they're doing it as the main event. Like I said, I wouldn't have the Rumble winner. If you're going to have the Rumble winner in night, I mean, it doesn't matter because Brock's already champion, but if you're going to have the Rumble winner on night 2 main event, you should probably have the Women's Rumble main event night 1. I mean, it just makes sense. And I wouldn't devalue the Women's Rumble like that, so you could have had Bianca win twice. People weren't overly excited about that idea. I would have done it personally. I think it just would have made sense. They had Bianca win Elimination Chamber anyway. But I do think Bianca and Becky is going to be a better match. It's had a better build. And I would put that in the main event of night 1, but they already announced, I'm pretty sure officially, will be Charlotte and Ronda closing out the show. I doubt they go back on that now. At Jeremy 8911 with the final few questions here. Final 3 questions from Jeremy. First one being, he tweeted last night during NXT, which I've yet to watch, but he said, grizzled young vets should be Sami Zayn's lackeys. And he wanted to get my thoughts on the idea. I like it. It's not like a must pairing, but I do think Sami works better on his own. I really do. I think Sami on his own is great. He doesn't need a faction. He doesn't need tag team partners. I don't really think he needs anyone else with him. If they were to give him his own little stable as a heel, then GYV would be the guys to go to. I think with the cabbie hats and shit, it would be kind of cool. Them with like Sheamus or something, I think would be even better because they're hard hitters and they kind of fit that style a little bit more. And they're also from Europe too, so you could kind of do that European stable that WWE did in WWE 10 years ago with Barrett, Sheamus, Regal, and McIntyre, I think. Do something like that. A better version of League of Nations. I think that'd be cooler. Like the idea, it's not like, that needs to happen, because Sami doesn't really need anyone, but if it were to happen, I wouldn't complain. I think that's pretty cool. It would also get GYV in the main roster, which they deserve to be. Would they actually be booked properly? Probably not, I would have to say. I mean, I doubt they get utilized correctly. Jeremy's next question, do you think it will be revealed? A tag team moving over NXT UK will be revealed. I think you messed up the wording of the question here. Do you think it'll be revealed that a tag team moving over to NXT UK will be revealed to have the attacking of Pretty Deadly? Pretty Deadly was attacked, apparently. Or no, will be attacked. I don't really know what you're asking. I haven't watched NXT yet, so maybe something happened on the show last night that I missed. If you're asking, is a team coming over from NXT UK, could it be Pretty Deadly? Maybe. I like Pretty Deadly. They've already won the NXT UK tag team titles. They've grown on me. They're a pretty good team. How well they do in NXT 2.0, I don't know. I mean, GYV really haven't had a lot of success at all. They've been lost 3 Dusty Classics. They haven't won the titles at all. And they probably won't at this point. Would Pretty Deadly be any better off? Maybe. I don't really know, but it would be a lateral move because they already kind of did everything in NXT UK. So to explore the other brand, I think would be pretty cool. So I would like to see Pretty Deadly in NXT. They need more tag teams anyway. Whether that's actually going to happen or not, I'm not sure. I'm not expecting it, but I wouldn't mind seeing that. Jeremy's last question for the episode. Do you agree Braun Breaker is getting that call up after SummerSlam or getting drafted? SummerSlam. I think he's moving up to the main roster after WrestleMania. I mean, Breaker could win the belt back after at WrestleMania weekend at Stand and Deliver from Ziggler, which is very possible. Breaker's ready now. I mean, I honestly think he's getting called up after WrestleMania, and I would not complain. The problem is that it's so, I think they'll have a better time of him, utilizing him and ensure he gets utilized correctly over a guy like Ciampa, for sure. I think Breaker's more of a WWE guy anyway. I don't think they want to wait until SummerSlam. I think they see dollar signs in the kid right now. So I don't think they're definitely not waiting until October. If they wait until October to call up Braun Breaker, I would be shocked. I'm thinking he gets called up right after WrestleMania. And if not, around SummerSlam time would also make sense. If not, in the spring. If he gets the belt back, I don't think he'll be champion for 7 months. He'll probably lose it to Walter, Gunther, whatever the fuck they're calling him now. He's main roster bound sooner rather than later. I wouldn't mind if it was after WrestleMania. And we'll see. I really think the draft is too far away. I'm not even saying that it would be a bad idea if they waited. I just don't think they will. SummerSlam makes more sense. And they need as much star power as they can get right now on both brands. And they need to build up new talent in the main event slots. A Braun Breaker would be perfect. I'm not saying put the Universal title on him from day one. But one day later on in the year, him and Roman would be a very compelling main event. Like a SummerSlam match, Breaker and Roman, I'd fucking love to see that. I would love to see that. So it's a matter of whether they actually call him up or not. And I think he's ready right now. I don't really think there's any reason to continue not wasting him in NXT. NXT kind of needs him because they don't have a lot of stars themselves. But, Raw and SmackDown are the priority, and I wouldn't mind seeing him called up, and I think he would do well anyway. They need more top-tier talent, like I said, more household names, and Braun Breaker is that guy. And that's going to do it, guys, for episode, I was going to say almost 316. Today is 316. For episode 433 of #AskGSM for March 16, 2022. Thank you guys, as always, for sending in your questions to the show. I appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed my answers. If you want to send in a question to the show every week, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/gram.gsm.matthews. Drop a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below on the comment section in this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Have an awesome one, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy Austin 316 Day. Swig of water, soda, beer, whatever, for the working man. And that's the bottom line, because Graham GSM Matthews said so. I'll catch your ass down the road.